Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gaming Mix podcast, your official podcast from analogstickgaming.com. It's been a little while since we've seen you, so if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan. I am one of the co-owners of Analog Stick Gaming, and to my right, as he now always is the founder himself, Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Well, my back took a turn for the worse, so I am in absolute agony.
Yeah, we've both had some health issues over the last couple of weeks, and that's why we haven't been here doing episodes. So we do have some news to catch up on, some things that we can tell you about that we've been playing. We've also been playing some things that we can't tell you about yet. So this should be a fun episode. But yeah, why don't we get straight to the news here, Jeff?
Alrighty. Let's see here. In no particular order. Retro Specialist Digital Eclipse is releasing a compilation of the Tetris series. So the news today comes to us from VGC. Tetris Forever is the next game in Digital Eclipse's Gold Master series and will include more than 15 playable games from the series' history. These include an accurate recreation of the original original version of the Electronica 60 computer Tetris, the 1988 Famicom version, Tetris 2 plus Bombliss, Tetris Battlegaden, Hatris, Super Bombliss DX, Super Tetris 2 plus Bombliss, and Super Tetris 3. As the next Gold Master series entry, Tetris Forever will also include more than an hour of documentary featurettes exploring the lifelong friendship and creative partnership between Tetris creator Alexei Pachinov and the Tetris Company founder Hank Rogers, as they share an extraordinary but true story about Tetris that you never knew. It will also include a brand new game called Tetris Time Warp, where the player jumps between game styles throughout the history of the series. This is a big collection of Tetris. We see collections of a variety of different games coming out, but you never think Tetris,
No.
right?
Yeah, you never do. And there's been so many versions over the years as well, right? Like some people like the newer stuff, some people are still a fan of the older stuff. So it is nice to see this, but this news sort of came out of nowhere a little bit before we recorded, right? So this is an interesting one because some of these Tetris games I didn't even know existed, I'll be
I didn't even
honest.
know what the Bombliss is. I don't think I've ever heard of that. But yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of doing a collection. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to do. Even just like remasters of old games. I mean, like they just announced Aspire is doing Jedi Power Battles. Like they're just pulling any game they can, and they're like, hey, we can get this going in 6 months. Let's do this.
Yeah, true.
So
And that's the thing, like remasters and sort of porting older games to newer hardware with some slight
yeah,
improvements is quite an easy thing to do. And in some cases it can be worthwhile, right? So I
and
think that this is a collection I could see doing very, very well.
yeah,
Um
and this is, I think, probably the first time that I would say at least 98% of the people who buy it will be the first time they've ever played the first Tetris. Like they
yeah,
played the first Tetris, but probably on the Game Boy or something like that.
yes,
But I
that's
mean, the
true.
Electronica 60, that, like that'll be interesting.
Yeah, because I only ever played it on the Game Boy back in the day.
Yeah,
And then obviously I really I didn't play Tetris for years until Tetris Effect came around, and
I was
then
more of a columns guy because I had the Game Gear, so I had columns. So that game, like I played the shit out of that. I
fair,
never got into
fair.
like Luminous or any of the other those type
No, I didn't either.
ones.
What I
Um,
do like about this collection that they're doing is the mention of like the documentary
yeah,
stuff.
that stuff's always cool.
That's really nice, and that's going to be interesting to see. This is one that if it's a reasonable price, I will definitely pick up because I am a fan of Tetris. So yeah, and as I
Yeah,
said, there's some games in here that I've never even heard of, so it's going to
see, I
be
like
interesting to see those.
what was it, Tetris Acid Trip? That that Tetris Effect one, where basically it's just like you don't know if you're on drugs or not, or you're like, hey, I wonder what it's like to be on LSD. Let's do this. But
Yeah. So that's a nice bit of news to start our first episode back in a while.
we
What
actually have a lot of good news. Like, there's not really anything that's terribly bad.
so
Um,
good things have happened while we were away. That's maybe it's us, Jeff. Maybe we're the problem.
could be. I mean, there's a couple stories that are kind of bad, but we'll jump right into another positive one. Um, so people who have been watching this podcast regularly since the very beginning, um, thank you. First of all, your checks in the mail. Um, we we normally have seen most companies letting go of their workers or whatever the case is, but From Software has announced that it will be increasing its employees' average salary. The Japanese developer has stated that from April 2025, employees will get an average basic salary increase of around 11.8%. The starting monthly salary for new graduates will be increased from approximately 1,775 USD to over 2,050 USD. This is an increase of just over 15%. So they're jumping from 2,600 yen to 300,000 yen. At From Software, we strive to make games that convey emotion, create value, and inspire joy. A statement from the company reads. To this end, we are working towards stable income and a rewarding work environment where our employees can apply themselves to development. The increase in base and starting salaries is one implementation of this policy. We will continue to develop games with the hopes of inspiring players and creating something of value. From Software's latest release, of course, is Shadow of the Erdtree, the DLC expansion for its 2022 release, Elden Ring. Um, this is incredibly rare
Yes.
to see a company not only increase certain wages, because sometimes we see higher ups get increases and bonuses and things like that.
Yeah, we do.
The
Yeah.
starting salary for the entire development. And you got to imagine that's a lot of money.
Yeah. This is a lot of extra money they're going to be paying out, which in turn increases, the budgets that they'll have for any
Yeah.
future games. That increases the pressure on those games to do well. But I also think that From Software, over the last decade especially, have become a very successful and very reliable company, right? So,
And it's not a live service game that's packed with microtransactions. Like,
yeah,
we were told years ago that single player games are dead, and yet Elden Ring and like even Armored Core, like that was another like division of From Software. So you got to imagine like
yeah,
they're getting an increase as well too.
definitely. And they
Um,
also have had, you know, From Software have had investment from other sources as well. Like I
yeah,
believe Sony invested some money into them and a few other companies as well. So, it's nice to see this kind of thing happen because this is the way that the industry should work. If a company does well and if they're able to afford this, they should do it. It first of all, it helps staff retention. I guarantee you, no one on that team is leaving that studio now. It's just like, why would you? If your pay is going up by that much, like that's a substantial increase.
yeah,
Here in the UK, when we get wage increases, we might get 2.5%, 3%, or something like that. This is like over 10% of an
yeah.
increase. That's a lot
Like
of money.
earlier this year, Capcom they raised their wages as well too, but it was by 4%.
Yeah.
Um, but still, because I mean that's Capcom's way bigger
Yeah.
than From Software in terms of its development resources. So like
Yes.
4% across all of its employees is
Is
substantial.
actually still a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah, because like From Software, it's like From Software. Let's see here, how many employees?
They're smaller than people think, right? Because I think they only have two different development teams.
So they've got about 420 staff.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. I am excited to see what they do next because obviously it seems like they're finished with Elden Ring in terms of DLC at this point. So what's the next game going to be? Is it going to be another Elden Ring, or are they going
Wow.
to do something else?
So to pay all of their staff, they're looking at almost 130 million yen.
Wow. Wow.
So 130 million yen to USD.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. That's interesting.
Um,
Because that will give us an idea of how much their games are going to cost going forward.
wait, so that's less than $1 million USD.
Really?
What? That doesn't make
That
any sense.
can't be right.
All
That
right,
can't be.
we'll leave the math for the people that have gone to like college for like that stuff. So it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money either way, is what we're saying. And, I think that this is something that should be celebrated. So here's to From Software. And now let's move on with another piece of news. Do we have any more positive news, Jeff? I'm enjoying this
Um,
train of
let's
positivity.
see here what we've got. That's kind of, yeah, sure, we'll go for this. A lot of people have been really excited for a return to this. Sega has revealed that it's working on an Alien Isolation sequel. The announcement was made on Monday to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the game's original release. The sequel is in early development at Creative Assembly, according to studio creative director Al Hope, who also directed Alien Isolation. On the 10th anniversary, it seems only fitting to let you know that we have heard your distress calls loud and clear. Today, I'm delighted to confirm on behalf of our team that a sequel to Alien Isolation is in early development. We look forward to sharing more details with you when we're ready. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been kind of excited for this because like the first game kind of felt like a game that never really got its flowers. It feels like one of those games that it didn't. It, a lot of people say it was divisive, but it wasn't. I mean, it got like a over a 70 and stuff on Metacritic and whatnot. So I mean,
Yeah.
like it was generally favored.
And I
Um,
also think it was one of those games that became more favored over time. Like
yeah,
people look back on that game differently than how they felt when they first played it. I think because I saw Ryan McCaffrey do a tweet of like, "Oh look, here's a sequel," and everyone told me that my review would have ruined the chances for a sequel because I think he originally scored it a 5.9 out of 10 at IGN. But even him, I've heard in recent years say more positive things about Alien Isolation than his initial score would suggest. So I do think that maybe the game was just sort of a game out of time and people didn't quite click with it when it originally released, but over time it built up this massive following, right? And
mhm.
here's my gaming confession. I've only ever played like 20 minutes of the game. So
Yeah. I I played very little of it.
but with this announcement I will play it. I'll say that. Like I'm excited to see what they do with this sequel because I think we've had a lot of games in this sort of genre and style now, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do to kind of further this style of game that
Yeah.
really they set the groundwork for in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean we have Jurassic Park Survival as well coming out
Yeah.
through Saber.
There's there's
So I
a
mean there's
there's a
that kind of stuff.
quiet place game coming out soon. That one's going to be interesting, I think. And if we can get our hands on it, I might take a look at that game. So we'll see what we can do there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you like horror games, there's lots of good ones coming out and sort of on the horizon, if you will.
Nice. All right. Just send you a DM here. Alrighty. Let's see here. All right. So the director of the original Silent Hill 2 has expressed his excitement about the upcoming survival horror remake. The new title, which hits PS5 and PC on Tuesday, which is now out, has been developed by Bloober Team, the Polish studio behind the Medium, Layers of Fear, and Blair Witch. Unlike the fixed camera system in the 2001 original, the remake adapts an over-the-shoulder perspective, similar to Resident Evil 4. Writing on Twitter, the original Silent Hill 2 director, Masashi Tsushiboyama, singled this out as a key reason he's excited to play the game. Games and technology are constantly evolving, resulting in significant differences in constraints and levels of expression. This is a common issue with media arts in general, but it is not easy to maintain and appreciate the environment of the time. I think the value of the remake is that a new generation can play it. As a creator, I'm very happy about it. It's been 23 years. Even if you don't know the original, you can just enjoy the remake as it is. Whether it's good or bad doesn't affect the original. The one thing to note is the change in camera. The changes in playable camera has a significant impact on many aspects: combat, level design, art creation, etc. While the impact of the story may be relatively small, it brings a new change to the play feel of the game. To be honest, I'm not satisfied with the playable camera from 23 years ago. Depth and angle were limited by processing load. It was a continuous process of hard work that was not reported, but that was the limit. The over-the-shoulder view definitely adds to the series a sense of realism. In other words, it makes me want to try playing the even more immersive remake of Silent Hill 2. Um, yeah, like I'll be talking more about the game when we get to what we've been playing. But there was one moment where the camera, I was in like this, like in a bar, and it came from behind there, and the view was still kind of focused down, and I just got waylaid by an enemy. Like I was like, that's the only part that the camera has just absolutely sucked on. And you
That's it.
can't
Yeah,
lock on to enemies.
I've heard some interesting things about how the camera does struggle slightly in certain areas of the game. I haven't played it yet because I would like to play it on PC, but there are some technical issues with the PC version at the moment, which
Yeah.
Digital Foundry are going to be doing a video on. So I highly recommend checking that out. But it's basically having stuttering issues, which are not to do with shader compilation. So nobody knows for sure what's causing the stuttering, but I'm hoping that it will be patched out because this is a game that I really want to play. Because one thing I will say, just from seeing a bit of gameplay and stuff, it looks fantastic. Like, I'm really, really impressed by what I've seen. I think that one thing that really surprises me is this might be the first game ever in in the kind of history of gaming where I've seen media and other people go, "Oh, actually, I was wrong." Like a lot of people stick to their initial impression of what they think a game was going to be when they first saw it, and I think that everybody thought that this Silent Hill 2 remake was not going to do anything
Well,
very good.
the the initial trailers for it were not um, great for
Yeah.
it. Um, and I mean, like Bloober Team has also shown that they fumble a lot of complex issues and stuff. I mean, the ending for the medium was absolutely horrible. It did not earn them any favors whatsoever. But I mean, also they've been a studio that has been inspired by Silent Hill. I mean, that was kind of the basis for them kind of forming.
And it feels like this is the dream project for them in many ways, right?
Yeah.
Because they've been trying to get their hands on this IP for a really long time. So actually, I'm really glad to see that they have essentially nailed this. Like, I don't think they. I'm sure. Yes, they could have made some improvements. Like, it could have been technically better on PC. They could have done something to avoid these camera issues that some people are having, right? But from most things that I hear about the game, they kind of took what was already there, did all of that really well, and then made some changes that made sense in certain areas. Like, I know that certain areas of the game are now accessible that weren't previously accessible, so they've sort of expanded the world slightly, and there's more of a exploration feel to it. I so yeah, I'm glad to see that they nailed it because I remember having a lot of conversations before the game came out with people about how if anyone could nail this game, it was Bluebird Team, but if anyone could fumble it, it was also Bluebird Team, and that was the problem.
Yeah. They're very inconsistent in regards to like the quality and stuff. Like there's parts that I love about the medium, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't like about it.
Yeah,
And like the Layers of Fears games, like I played all of them, and they're okay, but I mean, like they're not scary. The atmosphere is so inconsistent on those.
yeah.
But
Here's a question for you then, Jeff.
yeah.
Now that they've remade this game and seemingly successfully done so, do you think Konami gives them a chance to make a brand new Silent Hill game?
Um, I don't know. I think honestly, there's more of a chance of them remaking the first or third one.
Okay.
I think they would remake the first one because like the
Yeah,
first
I
and
think
third one
so.
connect, so you would
Yeah.
have to have something.
Yeah.
Um, Unless they make the third one and then like there's a prologue of the first one, which is just like a like a truncated version of it to kind of
True, yeah,
set
they
up.
could do something like that. That'd be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm always, even when it's games that I'm not necessarily interested in, I always want to see games do really well. And quite frankly, there's so much negativity around gaming that I think we should celebrate these successes, even when they have small problems, because small issues can be fixed, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
like I know
I think,
like there's a subset of like the audience that are kind of like pissed off that they've changed certain characters or like made them ugly, all that bullshit. Um, like
I
I'm not
don't get those people.
I'm not like terribly impressed with like some of the character designs and stuff like that. I think they're
Mhm.
fine. I don't think it's
Yeah.
worth boycotting the game because I mean, again, we've shown that boycotts don't work.
Yes.
It's such a small voice, and even then, the people that are boycotting it, they're 5 hours into Silent Hill 2 right now. So
True. True. That's a good
that's
point.
that's how
I'm.
it always
I
worked.
have heard that this game, this remake, is significantly longer than the original, which is interesting.
I don't know if it's really that much longer. Silent Hill 2, how long to beat? Let's take a look here. So we've got the original one is 9.5 hours.
Okay.
So Silent Hill
Interesting.
2 remake length. Um, well, it says 100% playthrough is about 20 hours.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm not 100% too sure. Like it could be because like they may have added like some more like rooms and stuff because like I'm
True.
following like
Yeah.
cool places and things like that.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
very interested to play it, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about on it. Obviously you're playing a bit of it already, so we'll talk
yeah.
more about that later. But I assume that that does mean you'll probably be doing a review for it, right, Jeff?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I didn't spend $95 to not do a review.
So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that one. Unfortunately, we weren't quite lucky enough to get a code. Which is a shame. But Jeff has spent his money to provide you good content when he gets to doing that. But I know he's very busy, and we'll talk about more
Well,
why
I mean,
later on.
if you kind of look at our output for the last month, I think 98% of the stuff was code provided reviews. So like
Yeah.
like we
And we
are.
are, and also I want to take a second to say thank you to people who follow this podcast and the website, because our audience has actually grown recently. So if you have visited the website and you're a new member of our audience, thank you and hello. um, but for now, I think we should probably bring you some more news
Sure
from
thing.
the last couple of weeks. What have we got here, Jeff?
All right, we're gonna do a little run of Ubisoft because they can't help but get into the news. All righty, we're gonna start off with something good, and then kind of move on to the typical things that we generally hear.
Yes.
Assassin's Creed Mirage will be landing on Steam this month. Billed as a love letter to the original Assassin's Creed, Mirage was released in October of 2023 for consoles and PC via the Epic Game Store and the Ubisoft Store, before making its way to iPhone this June. Following Star Wars Outlaws' weaker than expected launch in August, Ubisoft recently delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows to February 2025. At the same time, Ubisoft has said Assassin's Creed Shadows will mark the return of its new releases to Steam on day one. It's also announced its plans to release Star Wars on Steam in this November 21st. Mirage's development was led by Ubisoft Bordeaux. the studio behind Assassin's Creed Valhalla's Wrath of the Druids expansion, and a team really known for working on that engine. Gameplay is focused on parkour, stealth, and assassinations, marking a return to the action adventure style of the games prior to its more expansive RPG series, such as Origins Odyssey, which is the best one in the series, and Valhalla. Yeah, so I mean that's one thing that is going to be really good for Ubisoft is getting to Steam because it's a massive audience.
I mean,
Because
it's
Steam
going to help
people do
sell
not
more
want to go to Epic;
because
they don't want to
yeah,
go to the Ubisoft thing. So
and that's the thing is like there are so many users on PC, and not everyone who uses Steam is like this. Let's be very clear, but there are lots of people that on PC will only use Steam,
yeah,
and
like I have Epic installed just to get the free games. Like I got Bear and Breakfast for absolutely free. Fucking
yeah,
Steam.
I actually don't mind the Ubisoft Connect app because the weird thing with Ubisoft Connect is my understanding is even if you own those games on Steam, you still need to install Ubisoft Connect anyway because the game runs through Ubisoft. It's just that you're using Steam as the launcher. So
Mm,
it's interesting in that sense. And obviously for me as someone who actually is still a subscriber of Ubisoft Plus, I it benefits me to use Ubisoft Connect, and I also like the way the cross save stuff works now that it actually works in
yeah,
Star Wars Outlaws as well. Um but on Assassin's Creed, what I would say is if you haven't played Mirage, I really think you should. It's a good Assassin's Creed game. It's a nice sort of medium length game. It isn't gonna take you 100 hours like Valhalla or you
yeah.
know
I
or
think the only
Odyssey.
thing that is I would say generally okay about the game, and I mean okay, is its
Mm,
story and its
yeah,
characters. I don't think those land terribly great, but the gameplay's still fun.
yeah.
Like Odyssey
And
is
it
still my favorite.
definitely
Like it's never gonna get dethroned.
see
Shadows maybe.
Odyssey is the only one I don't like. So that's really interesting that we're on
Well, who did you
opposite
play as?
ends of
Cassandra or the wrong guy?
Cassandra.
Okay,
Cassandra, everyone. Like,
yeah,
why would you play?
yeah, Cassandra's canon. Like the one thing that I'm kind of interested as well is with Assassin's Creed Shadows is the fact that it's now going to be co-op.
Yeah. That is gonna be really interesting.
Yeah, like that's gonna be insane.
And that's gonna be a major change for them. And I know that people let's speak about this Assassin's Creed Shadows delay for a minute.
Yeah,
Because I know that people have some concerns over the fact the game's been delayed till February, and just around other things that are going on with Ubisoft that we'll talk about in a minute. But I am not really concerned. I actually think it's a good thing because it shows that they want it to be the best it can be, and it's also they haven't delayed it indefinitely. They've taken people's feedback. They've seen the reception to Star Wars Outlaws being mixed. I actually still think Star Wars Outlaws was a great game,
yeah.
in my opinion. Um, I think that Gene Park made a really strong point about Star Wars Outlaws in that reviews were potentially hurt slightly with that game because people had to rush the game to get it reviewed
Oh
in
yeah,
time.
I crunched the fuck out of it because like I got my code like probably 2 days after most of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
industry,
because I had
and
my code a
even
bit
them,
before you.
yeah,
Yeah,
like even them were like, oh, I had to like crunch or like that. Like, bitch, I'm like, I had way less time than you.
yeah.
Um, and like, yeah, like I like there were like missions and stuff like that where I'm like, okay, if I
Mm.
stealth this base, it's gonna take me 35 minutes.
Yes, yeah,
I phaser gunned the crap out of everyone I possibly
yeah. So
could
you
do it in
didn't
20.
necessarily play it the way that you would have played it, right?
Yeah,
And that makes a huge difference. So I think that that's really interesting. But on Assassin's Creed Shadows, I just am not that concerned because I think that on a core gameplay level, everything they've shown looks good to me. Like,
yeah.
I'm really interested to
And
play
this
it.
is the Assassin's Creed that everybody has been wanting. They've been wanting them to
Yeah.
go to Japan.
And then when you hear the co op thing as well, in my head, I was like, maybe that's what's causing technical problems. Maybe they don't want to launch it and have the co op be broken. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's what I would like to see though, because we don't know exactly what the co-op is at this moment in time. I I would love it if the entire game was playable in co-op. I don't
See,
think they will do that.
yeah, because I would assume that at points in the story, the characters have to get split up and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be like you can, I don't know, if it'll be like some type of like, I don't know, bell or something, and you ding that, and then that lets you find your co-op partner.
Yeah, maybe because obviously the thing with Ubisoft is they have done co-op open world games before, so those
Yeah,
they've
Far
shown
Cry.
that they can be done. You know, Far Cry, Division's obviously smaller, but even like the Ghost Recon games, the last two Ghost Recon games can be played pretty much fully in co-op outside of the prologue mission. Um, and I'd be interested to see how they handle it with Assassin's Creed because, as you said, you know there are going to be moments in this, and we've seen it in the gameplay they've shown where you have to kind of choose which one you want to do the mission with.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to be interesting because could they do something in co-op where maybe if there are moments in the story where you both split off and do a separate thing, maybe you actually have to do that in co-op. You know, maybe it's like
Yeah,
you have
but
to
then
now
how
go
do you
and
tie that up narratively? Do you have them sitting at a door going, waiting for co-op player to finish their mission?
true.
You know, and you're just like chilling up against the wall, like reading a magazine while you're waiting for like,
So it's going to be interesting to see, but I would say that yeah, I have no real apprehension about this game specifically. However, I do have some concerns about the future of Ubisoft. And why might that be, Jeff?
well, there's a few things. First off, Tencent and Ubisoft founders and the Guillemot family are reporting considering teaming up to take the company private after it's lost more than half its market value this year. According to Bloomberg sources, the Chinese conglomerate, which already owns around 10% of Ubisoft, and the Guillemot brothers have been speaking with advisors to explore ways to stabilize the company. One of the possibilities discussed would involve teaming up to take Ubisoft private. It's claimed, though talks are said to be in an early stage and there's no certainty that it will lead to action. Tencent and the Guillemot family are considering other alternatives, according to Bloomberg. Last month, Ubisoft's share price dropped to its lowest point in nearly 11 years. The most recent dips follow Ubisoft's announcement that it had delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows and the disappointing launch performance of Star Wars Outlaws. Early in September, a minority investor called on Ubisoft's management to take the company private or let it be sold to a strategic investor. Hedge fund AJ Investments published an open letter calling for strategic and structural changes at Ubisoft. It urges the board to consider taking the company private, implement a comprehensive cost reduction program, and optimizing staffing levels to be more comparable with industry leaders, increasing its focus on core IPs and consider replacing current CEO Yves Comel. I can never say his name. I'll say it his last name wrong 75 times. Slovakia-based AJ Investments holds less than 1% stock in Ubisoft, so it's hard to say if they will be listened to. Um, yeah, like this is, you know, Ubisoft has had kind of a weird um, thing because
Decade.
they have a lot of properties. They're not really doing much. I mean, they canceled the Division Heartland because they didn't know what to do with it, and who knows how far that along that was.
Yeah.
And then they've got Division 3, I think they announced or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's been officially announced that Massive are now working on Division 3 and they are of course the main division team.
yeah,
Um I mean, yeah, I don't think that game's going to see any trouble. My concern here is not so much Ubisoft going private because I actually think that if they did that, that might be a good thing. Um, because
they'll lose a lot of staff if they do that restructuring thing though,
yeah, they will. Yeah,
because there's
yeah,
like each Assassin's Creed game is made with like 8 to 900 people.
yeah.
In
So many
The
people on
Witcher
those
3,
games.
like they could use that as an example. The Witcher 3 was made with half that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I guess my concern, and I don't have anything against Tencent specifically, but they own so much stuff that if they buy more of Ubisoft, I would be concerned in their ability to manage it properly. And my other concern would be if they buy more of Ubisoft just to help stabilize it, but then leave the same leadership there, what really changes? Do you know?
Yeah, like I could see a different CEO
hmm
kind of
Yeah,
like, kickstarting the company. Like it sucks that Outlaws underperformed because, like, again, it is a good game.
yeah.
Reviews just unfortunately were not, it's kind of tailored to
I think
represent the game well.
Outlaws is the kind of game as well that genuinely, when we're speaking about Outlaws in like 6 months' time, I think the conversation will be different because this is the sort of game that a lot of people got put off of they got put off of it by the mixed reviews, but they still want to play it. They're just not willing to spend the full price on it. So
Yeah,
when this game goes on sale around Black Friday or in the Christmas season, you know, people are going to pick up this game over the holiday period, and I think they're going to play it and enjoy it. So I do think it will become a more successful game over time.
yeah,
But
and like
it's
Ubisoft is also the type of company that a lot of people are like, don't buy Ubisoft games on day one because in 3 4 months they'll be half price.
yeah, they put
They
their
did that with
games on
Avatar.
sale very quickly. Yeah,
Like
very
Avatar, in
quickly.
less than 2 months, Avatar. I mean, it also helped that it released, at that season. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, and Ubisoft, oh, we're not done yet. Um, Ubisoft is facing a potential class action lawsuit for alleged illegal user data sharing. As reported by Bloomberg Law, the class action complaint accuses Assassin's Creed publisher of sharing personally identifiable information with Facebook company Meta. According to the complaint, players who use the Ubisoft website to buy a game on the Ubisoft store or use it to subscribe to Ubisoft Plus are having their um, personally identifiable information (PII) sent to Meta through its Pixel user tracking software. Defendant does not disclose on the website that PII's user personally identified information will be captured by the Meta platformings, including tracking pixel utilized by defendant, and then transferred to Meta, thereby exposing the subscriber's PII to any person of ordinary technical skill who received that data, the complaint reads. Data sharing policies for a service or subscription is an important factor for individuals deciding whether to provide personal information to that service. The complaint claims that this practice is a violation of the Video Privacy Protection Act, which was originally introduced in 1988 to prevent video rental stores from sharing a member's PII because it could specifically tie the identity of an individual to their purchase history. Um, there's more in the story, so definitely check out VGC's post here by Chris Scullion. It goes a bit more into detail. But this is the type of stuff that kind of triggers new legislation. This is the type of thing that um, can certainly damage a company, especially if it's a class action lawsuit and you feel that your information has been shared to Meta, because Meta is Facebook and a lot of people hate Facebook. Um, but yeah, I mean, it sucks because Ubisoft has been, having kind of a lot of negative news lately. Um, but yeah,
Speaking of negative news, I'm gonna send you some more to read out here. This is kind of breaking news while we're recording, and it's not big for everyone in the world, but for my region specifically, this game is massively successful, generally speaking, and it's just received a pretty big delay.
yeah. All right, we'll cover that in a bit here. But yeah, like Ubisoft, like having this kind of thing. Like again, this is alleged. There's no concrete proof or anything like that. It's hard to say
Yeah.
exactly how much is actually going to be exposed off this, or if they're just gonna,
Mhm.
both
And we've
parties deny
seen
it.
this sort of thing happen with other companies as well. So this isn't just a Ubisoft issue. Like this is an industry wide issue that's been happening for many years.
And it's not a hack or anything. That's the one thing as well too, because I mean, like, Sony, had a infamous hack for their network and user information. I
Yes.
mean, even employee information. I mean, the Insomniac thing as well too. We had the ESA getting hacked, so people literally
Yeah.
had to move.
Yeah.
People had phone numbers. Like I think Jeff Gersman said, like someone actually called him or something. If no, it was Jeff Grubb. Jeff Grubb, like someone literally called his home phone number. Like
Wow.
so we get a lot of those types of things and stuff. But you know, private information, like that. It's it's hard to say exactly what kind of information is truly shared, but still, you can tie names and stuff to particular purchases and things like that. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame. And hopefully, this all gets sorted out and doesn't happen again. Things can be put in place for this sort of thing to not happen again. Um, well, I know we've got a bit of news left, so why
oh
don't
yeah,
we carry on here with the train of news?
yeah. So, just trying to see a good place to start on this one. Sports Interactive has delayed the launch of Football Manager 25 again, this time until 2025. In a statement this afternoon, the developer said that it agreed with publisher Sega to postpone the game's launch on all platforms until March of next year. Previously, the Footy Sim had been set to arrive on the 26th of November for PC and console platforms, as well as Nintendo Switch, but on December 3rd. Before that, it had been expected earlier this year. After careful consideration, Sports Interactive has made the tough choice to further delay the release of Football Manager 25. The developer wrote in a statement released this afternoon. Following discussions with Sega, our licensors, and partners, we have agreed that the best course of action is to delay the launch until March of 2025. Um, in our last development update in September, we explained that we needed to push FM25's original release back to give ourselves more time to deliver the best possible experience for this first installment in a new era of Football Manager. This additional time has not been sufficient to ensure the game quality and experience meets your expectations and our very high standards. In this previous blog, we explained that it has been a difficult development cycle for the studio. Many things have been moving slower than we had predicted, despite everyone in the team working at an incredible pace to try and get everything done. So, you know, um, I almost wonder if it's just going to be Football Manager 26 by the time that it gets
I mean, it
released.
might be because, yeah, so for people who don't know, Football Manager is a series that's been around a long time, and this year, for whatever reason, they decided to move the game to Unity. So it's being built on a completely new engine,
Mm,
which means they had to effectively scrap all of their previous work and make the game again from the start. Um, and the reason for the change makes sense because it will allow them to increase certain graphics
yeah,
and do different things with the game that they weren't previously able to do because they were so entrenched. Like when you've been making a game series for over a decade, you can't go back and change code from 12 years ago because you might break something. It's easier to start from scratch. And I always knew that this year's game, or what would have been this year's game, um, was going to have some cutbacks, and we know that certain modes are not going to be in the game, and they'll return in future installments and
yeah,
things like that. Because at the end of the day, it would have been a really big job to rebuild the entire game on a brand new engine
yeah,
because that game has come together over so many years.
and they've only used the Match engine for like what 2 or 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Um,
so it's a fairly new thing, and it's. I think it is a shame because this game has a history of always coming out sort of in the holiday period, usually late October to mid-November. Obviously, it was meant to be a couple of weeks later, and now they've had this delay of sort of 5 months here. I wouldn't be surprised to see this game get delayed again. Um, and that is a shame, but at the end of the day, this is a franchise that over the years I have thousands of hours in, and I do think that we need to give this team the time to deliver what they think is reasonable for the first entry of this series in this brand new era on this brand new engine, because you know they've earned it. Like, this is one of the most successful PC games every year, and they've brought it to consoles more recently, in recent years as well. It was on consoles many years ago, but they kind of stopped doing that for a while, and then about 2 or 3 years ago it came back to console,
Hmm.
which is even more work for them. And
Especially
I
making
think
a
it's
Switch version. Like you got to imagine that's an entirely different team probably working to make like a
yeah,
very
so
condensed
they
one.
have a lot of work to do, and obviously the game has been on Game Pass for the last few years as well,
Yeah.
so I think that Xbox have some involvement on that side. But what I like about this is they've clearly taken the feedback on board, because the feedback from Football Manager content creators and stuff in the last few weeks is has sort of been, well, we've only seen a few screenshots of the game. They're all work in progress. We haven't seen any actual gameplay, and if this game isn't ready, just delay it, kind of thing. And then it's funny that a week later, this announcement comes that they've delayed the game. I am glad that it's not an indefinite delay,
Yeah.
because I think an indefinite delay always concerns me more, because that makes you think that a game is dead. This does sound like maybe they've just had more issues building it on the new engine than they anticipated, and it's going to take a bit more time. And here is the cat once again,
It's
our
sugar.
official mascot.
There you go, sugar. You're
we
going
need
around
we need
there
to get a t-shirt with sugar on it.
pretty much. Do you think that this delay ends up canceling the Switch version and they end up just putting it on Switch 2?
Probably, probably, because the Switch 2, I would imagine, is probably going to come around about this time as well. So why would they, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, if they can just basically go like going like, well, what are we actually going to sell on Switch?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
how well did 24 sell on Switch or something like that, and then
yeah.
basically go from there.
And
Be,
let's remember as well, their biggest audience is on PC, and
yeah,
with this being such a PC centric franchise, their biggest audience will always be on PC. I
yeah,
know they have had some success on console, especially because of Game Pass, but at the end of the day, this is a PC first game, so I think that if any of the consoles do end up getting cut because of this delay, it's going to be that original Switch, and they're going to probably focus on whatever the next Nintendo hardware is, because why, if they're struggling, this is my thing as well. What I'm surprised about here is, if they are struggling, why do they not go to everyone, okay, let's have everyone on the PC version and get that right first, because that's our main audience, and then just delay the console versions? Because that's something we've seen many games do before, where they're like, oh, coming to consoles later or whatever.
yeah,
And I think that with this specific type of game as well, being a simulation management game, people would understand it coming to console later. Like, that, I don't think that would be too much of an issue. Whereas a 5 month delay for this game that has been very consistent in terms of its release cadence for well over a decade at this point, I think people are going to be a bit concerned about this. But my message would be that if you were expecting this game to be last year's game but better, when they're building it on an entire new engine, then you were expecting a bit too much, because it's kind of like, a bit of news that we have coming up is about Halo, and how there's been a big change there. And that is going to mean some steps back in some ways. Because when you move to a new engine, or, in some cases, when you move to a new team or whatever, it just takes a while. It takes a while to get things right. And I want Sports Interactive to take the time to get this game right because people love it and it does have a much bigger audience than I think the audience outside of the game even realizes.
Yeah, and I don't
Like
know if the timeline matches or anything like that, but I almost wonder if there was like a couple months where they're like, do we have to start this over in a different engine because Unity had all that bullshit like a
oh yeah,
year
true.
and a half ago. So like you
Yeah.
almost wonder if they
It
started to
might have
explore.
done because it might have done because they announced that they were doing this switch to Unity about 2 years ago. So they
Yeah.
did know, so they knew about 2 years ago that they were doing it. So there is a chance that at some point during the development, maybe they had to take a step back from that, and then that's delayed things.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see, but I wish them well, and we'll see what happens. But there you go. It's delayed till March 2025. So Football Manager 2025 will actually come out in 2025. It seems like.
Yeah. It's yeah, because normally like we'll see like, you know, 7 months lead on like Madden and it'll be like next
Yeah,
year.
yeah. It will always be like the year before it's actually titled
Yeah.
as.
And speaking of the world's game, they also announced that Konami is going to be leading the esports in regards to FIFA.
Yeah,
Um, so
which is weird. That's a weird one because
Konami's
that's
back in games, baby.
from what we understand at the moment on that. We're not going to go through the full bit of news, but from what I understand about that news is at the moment there's no deal for an actual game between FIFA and Konami,
Yeah,
but FIFA is sponsoring the esports event for what is now eFootball, used to be Pro Evolution Soccer, um, which is interesting because, you know, you go back sort of 10 to 15 years,
yeah, Pez was
and
huge.
Pro Evolution Soccer was the biggest competitor to FIFA, right? Like, so that's an interesting thing to see. And I think a lot of people, in terms of the next FIFA video game, which we know they are trying to get done, I think a lot of people rightly assumed it's probably going to be 2K, but maybe it's not going to go that way. Maybe this is the start of a partnership where we see Konami actually pick up the official license, and what is eFootball now and what was Pro Evolution in the past will actually become FIFA. So
Yeah,
the story is that Pro Evolution won that war, people, because they've just become FIFA, basically.
yeah, no, that's absolutely hilarious. Another little piece of news we're not going to little cover, but Microsoft's releasing a newer version of this bad
Oh, are
boy.
they?
So I might have
Oh,
to upgrade to the newer,
I
more
didn't.
expensive model.
I didn't know they were doing that. Interesting.
Just
Interesting.
announced. Since we were talking about it, let's jump into it here. And that is Halo developer 343 Industries is now rebranded as Halo Studios and announced it's working on multiple Halo games, all developed within Unreal Engine 5. The news was shared during Sunday's Halo World Championships tournament, in which it debuted a video showing a technical test of various Halo themed locations running within Unreal Engine 5. The studio stressed the footage shown isn't a game, but a glimpse of what the studio hopes to achieve with Unreal Engine 5. The game engine is a framework used for the development of games, and the cost and efforts associated with creating an original engine are high. So, for example, Halo has been using 343's own Slipspace engine, which is partly to blame for the game's last minute year long delay and sluggish rollout of post release content. Um, I'm going to go off script here. So, basically, the Slipspace engine was the reason why Halo 5 was what it, or Halo Infinite was what it was. And that was
Because they use contractors, right?
And yeah, so they had Teamsters essentially, basically, that would come in and learn the engine over the course of a couple months, do what they needed, and then they were done. And the problem with that is you kind of have when you have a proprietary engine, the people you're hiring don't know how to use it. And with the switch to Unreal, they now have thousands of developers that know how to use Unreal, some of them to the point that are probably better than the studio itself. And now they can hire those people to now work on those games. So
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier. The fact that it's been
Uh,
rebranded as well
uh,
too to Halo Studios, like
mm,
the leadership shakeup as well too.
yeah.
Um,
I think this is a nice fresh start point for them.
yes,
Um, but also what I what I want to say about this is, switching the engine could, as I said, could create some problems. However, as Jeff rightfully mentions, most developers in the industry have at least some experience with Unreal Engine because it's just so wide and so vast and
yeah,
can be used for so many different types of games that the quality of the staff that they can potentially get to work on these games has now risen by a lot, and
yeah,
that's not to belittle anyone who's worked on these games in the past, but learning a brand new engine that you have no experience with is always going to be harder to then do your job to the best of your ability
yeah,
and when you know an engine. The other
and
thing to
yeah,
say before you cut in there is that many Microsoft first party studios are now using Unreal Engine. So what happens when Halo Studios has a little bit of a problem doing something in the engine? They go over to the coalition who help Epic make demos for the Unreal Engine, and they go,
you
"Oh, can
literally
you
have a
help?"
team that can perform absolute magic. Like, I think the only issue we're ever going to see with Unreal is just some type of stuttering on PC and some
Yeah.
like pop in from any like large open areas. Like that's really been the only parts
Yeah. And
um,
also,
with
the more experienced you are with the engine, you could potentially even
yeah.
avoid
And
those issues.
Microsoft's a major publisher. They can go right to Epic
Yeah.
because I mean, like basically the best running game on Unreal Engine 5 right now is Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like it uses every goddamn tool that has, and people are like, oh, it's a cartoon game. No, look at how good that engine runs Fortnite.
Yeah.
It is disgusting how good that and polished that game feels.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. Definitely.
but
So I'm really excited about this change. I like that they've said how they're working on multiple Halo games
yeah,
and Halo projects. That leads me to believe, and this is just speculation on my part, but speculation is sometimes fun. I think they're going to remake the original Halo.
yeah. I mean, I think you basically just start from scratch with Halo. I think
Yeah.
Infinite left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. I think we'll eventually get back to some aspect of the story. Like personally, like I want another Halo Wars. I want
Yeah.
another Spartan Assault. Um,
Good games. Good games,
because
those
like,
were.
can you imagine a Spartan Assault that is just essentially Helldivers 2?
Oh my god. Yeah, that would be brilliant.
Like you
Yeah.
make it like that, and you're taking that entire audience.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You probably are.
So there's a lot of things that they can definitely do. Whether or not they're going to do battle royale, whether or not they're going
I
to do
do
something else
have
with this.
one question with this, though. Do you think that this engine change signifies that Halo might be going multi platform?
I think Halo and Gears are two franchises that you don't shop elsewhere other than PC.
I
Because
agree.
I think that you can take the Indiana Joneses, you can take the those types of games, but I think the flagship stuff you
Yeah.
have to keep to Xbox
Yeah, because otherwise your hardware dies, right?
because that is the core identity of them. So I don't think those guys go. I think that they I think honestly, I think yeah, I think Gears, I think Halo, and I think Forza, maybe
Yeah.
Fable. Um, but I think those games stay to Xbox. I think that they have to have something because like you can tease certain things like,
Yeah.
Sea of Thieves and Indiana Jones and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of those like Indiana Jones could have had a PlayStation deal originally.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And we actually know that there was a PlayStation version in development,
Yeah.
and Microsoft went to Disney and negotiated some sort of deal for some period of
Yeah.
exclusivity. So, it's interesting to see in that case. I do agree with you that your sort of tentpole franchises that, especially Halo and Gears, because they are literally the foundation that your platform was built on.
Yeah.
So I think you have to keep those. And I do agree with you as well that this multi platform stuff is no real issue to me. But if you want to keep doing hardware, you have to at least have something.
See,
You have to at least have some incentive for
yeah,
people.
and I think that if Halo was to ever come to PlayStation, and Switch 2, I think the only way you do that is if you create a Halo Battle Royale, like it's just a multiplayer
Yeah.
focused type of
Almost
thing
like a war zone, right?
yeah,
Almost
where
like a
you
war
need
zone.
that audience,
Yeah.
in size, and I think that's the only way that you ever see Halo that way. Like they could have it like it
Yeah.
could be called Spartan Assault. Like it just could take that branding away.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. They could do something like that. I agree with that. But I am really excited, and I know that they said the things they showed were only kind of to show what they can achieve with the
Yeah, because that
engine, and
Master Chief animation looked like an action figure. Like it looked like stop
yeah,
motion action figure. It didn't look that great, but
no,
the quality of the models look fantastic.
yeah, the actual environments and stuff, and we know how good Unreal can look. Like
Yeah,
Unreal can look amazing. So I'm very excited to see what this change brings. I just wonder whether, the final thing I'll say on this is I actually think it sounds like they're being quite clever, because if they're working on multiple franchises, like multiple games, that suggests to me that maybe what they're doing here is, let's do a couple of smaller projects to get used to using the engine and to kind of show people what we can achieve, and then we'll do the next big new game after that. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen.
yeah.
Nice.
All right.
So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think at the end of the day, there's a reason that all of Microsoft's first party studios at this point outside of Bethesda and Activision are all using Unreal Engine. Um, and I think there's also a reason that Microsoft and Epic have actually had a really close relationship in the last few years in terms of gaming. Like when this announcement was made, even Tim Sweeney was like tweeting it out, like, oh yeah, we're delighted to have this franchise and this studio finally using our engine. And I do think Epic will be there to help if they have problems. Like you were saying, like Microsoft is one of the major publishers, right? They probably could go straight to Epic and go, we need your help to get this team to where they need to be with this engine. So that's going to be really interesting to see. I think the future of Halo, in my opinion, is now brighter than it was before this change. So
Yeah.
so
All
we'll see
righty.
what it brings.
Last little bit of uh, Halo news here. Halo Infinite is set to get a third person mode next month. The news was announced during the 2024 Halo World Championships in Seattle during a discussion of the game's development. It was revealed that the game will be receiving an update in November, which adds the ability to play the game from an over the shoulder viewpoint. However, it will only be in a mode level, so you're not swapping back and forth in the traditional modes. This is interesting. I'm almost tempted to reinstall Halo Infinite when this drops just to try the mode out.
I think I will, yeah. It's because, it's it's going to be interesting to see how the game plays in that completely different perspective.
And we've had third person in Halo before. I mean, when you grab the minigun,
Yeah,
it switches to third person. So I
yeah,
mean, like we've had it before, but yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting seeing like all the different mechanics and stuff because you have to create new animations for
yeah,
pretty much a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Um,
And also,
yeah,
I never thought the gameplay of Halo Infinite was ever the issue. Like the
no,
gameplay was really good. you
like
know,
Halo Infinite's in a very good spot right now.
yeah.
It's got everything that they've kind of like
It it
essentially
just
promised.
it just took a little bit too long to get there, didn't it? That's
Yeah.
that's that's what really happened. Which is a shame. But I think I'll do the same as you. I think when this third person mode comes, I will definitely download the game to try it out for sure.
Alrighty. Let's take a look here. Microsoft, end of an era here. Microsoft has confirmed that it is discontinuing its HoloLens mixed reality headsets. The company told Upload VR that HoloLens 2 production has ended, meaning now is the last time to buy the hardware before stock runs out. Microsoft said HoloLens 2 will continue to receive updates to address critical security issues and software regressions until December 31st, 2027, after which support will cease entirely for the headset. Microsoft told Upload VR it's still fully committed to the deal to sell the U.S. Army augmented reality headsets based on HoloLens and backed by Azure cloud computing services. It previously said that the contract could be worth up to 21.88 billion over 10 years. Microsoft's current mixed reality ambitions are now tied to a partnership with Meta, which last year bought Xbox Cloud Gaming and Office web apps to Quest headsets. In April, the company said that they were working together again to create a limited edition MetaQuest inspired by Xbox. Um, this is like a piece of hardware that Microsoft had on a stage showing people playing Minecraft and all this kind of stuff. And then, like, do you think in any way whatsoever that the average consumer thinks that HoloLens was even still doing anything, let alone having a two?
No, no. Like
Like,
this was a this was an interesting one because on a technical front, I think the hardware had a lot of potential,
yeah,
and the way that they initially showed it with even things outside of gaming, I actually think they were ahead of the game. But for whatever reason, the sort of VR and AR market just didn't take it up. Probably the price. Let's be honest; these things were very, very expensive. Um, and yeah, I think that what this says to me is we have entered a partnership with another company, and as part of that partnership, we don't really see a point of doing our own hardware anymore. So it is a shame because I remember when they showed like Minecraft on the table in front of the guy.
mm,
That was like a whole demo, and that was really cool. And I do think it could have had some really cool applications. The thing is, I just think not enough people care about VR and AR. Maybe I'm wrong because I think the Meta Quest has sold a lot of devices at this point, but it was never really going to be a mainstream thing. So yeah, they'll continue to see out their military contract and all that kind of stuff because that's worth too much money. But the general consumer wasn't buying these things anyway, right? Like the only use I ever heard for people using these things was in the army for training and in hospitals for training as well. I know it was being
yeah.
used to train surgeons and stuff at one point. It's that sort of stuff is where this kind of technology should be used because it makes the most sense. In gaming, for the most part, I don't think VR AR really has that much of a use. I'm not saying it has no use, but I don't think enough gamers are interested in playing in that way for it to ever be successful enough to get the support that it actually deserves. Like, how many Half Life Alexes are we going to see? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's been one game that's been that good in the years of VR video games
Yeah,
at
and
this
people have
point.
modded that game to just be a first-person shooter now. So I mean, you don't even need a VR headset to play, Alex.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm not surprised by this news. It's an era that never started, which is, unfortunate. But these things happen sometimes. Sometimes tech just doesn't connect with people and doesn't work out.
All
That's all
right.
it is.
So we got two stories here for Sony, and then one last one that's pretty interesting. So Horizon Zero Dawn has been delisted on the Epic's Game Store ahead of the release of Horizon Dawn Remastered. The PC version of the game, which was released on Epic Game Store in 2020, is currently unavailable for purchase. When visiting the store page for the original version of the game, players are now directed to a link to purchase page for the new remastered version. The remaster, which comes out on PlayStation 5 and PC on October 31st. Will be available for $49.99 USD and also be available on Steam, while owners of the original game can upgrade to the remaster for $9.99. This is also on reports basically that the version on the PlayStation 4 and 5 of the original one has also doubled in price as well
Yeah, they
too.
put
So
the
Sony
price up,
was like,
didn't they?
yeah, like because they had the other one it was like $10 pretty
Yeah,
much
it's
US.
because they don't want people getting this upgrade for too cheap unless you bought the game years ago. So,
Yeah,
like, if you're already a fan of the game and you have it already, that's fine. In some way, I kind of understand that, but I don't like this practice of delisting the game entirely.
a lot of people have been noticing that the original Until Dawn is no longer available, but not everybody has been seeing this issue. Some people
Interesting.
have posted screenshots of Until Dawn 2015 or whatever saying currently unavailable. And then some people have been able to purchase it. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's a
Oh.
region thing.
Yeah, it could be a region thing. It could
But
be because sometimes licenses vary by region as well. Like, because you will apply to have a license in a certain region
yeah,
for a certain thing, and that license period can be different slightly based on the region. Um, yeah, I think that this is kind of an annoying move because, like I said, if somebody wants to buy the original version of the game, they should still be able to do that. Because let's remember as well, especially on PC, the original PC port was actually done by a completely different team. So there are going to be differences between this new remastered version and the original PC port outside of the graphical upgrade. Like one might run better than the other. Things like that. So I think that this is a shame, and I don't the price going up thing. I'm not as negative about. I think it does suck, but at the same time, I can kind of understand it because realistically, what they should have done is they should have said if you own the game by a certain date, then you get the upgrade for this price. That's what they should have done because then it stops people buying the game really cheap to get a cheap upgrade for a game that they didn't really want to play
yeah,
in
and
the
then
first place.
from a different date you pay 20. Like
Yeah, like
that
that's
type of
all
thing.
they had to do is say that the upgrade was available at a discounted price for people who own the original release by a certain date. That's all they had to do. And then it would have been fine. They don't have to do this price putting up and all that stuff. But Sony's going to do what Sony's going to do, as we've seen many, many times. So
And speaking of Sony doing what they're going to do, Sony has begun selling refurbished PlayStation 5 consoles via its online store, PlayStation Direct. The refurbished consoles are pre owned hardware which has been returned to the company for a variety of reasons and which are being resold at a discounted price. The hardware may have been returned because it was faulty or simply because the user opened the box before changing their mind and sending it back for a refund, meaning it can no longer be sold as new. As good as new, Sony says of the refurbished consoles, which have been extensively cleaned and tested and come with a 12-month manufacturer's warranty. The PlayStation models, the refurbished consoles available at the PlayStation launch model rather than the newer slim one. In the US, a refurbished PS5 with the disc drive costs 400, while the digital costs 350. In the UK, currently only PlayStation with a disc drive is available refurbished at 389.99 pounds.
Yeah.
Players can Sony says buyers can save up to $100 or $90 buying refurbished when compared to the prices of the PlayStation Slim, which cost $499 and $479 in the UK.
Yeah. I think that this is actually a good thing. Um, but what I would say is I think the pricing could be slightly better. Um, you know, I get it. Like some of these consoles that have been returned definitely will not have any problems, and they've just been returned because someone didn't want it or
Well, I
whatever.
mean, this is also a company that raised the price of the PlayStation 5 and their
Yeah,
DualSense controller. So, I mean, like getting it any cheaper than new is remarkable through Sony. So,
yeah, yeah. And I actually would like to see other hardware manufacturers do this as well because I do think, at the end of the day, if you don't have the money to buy brand new, it's nice to have the pre-owned option, right? It's
and
nice to
these are going
have
to be in better quality than you'll get at GameStop as well, because GameStop just confirmed
yeah.
that they turn on and then sell
Whereas
again.
whereas Sony will actually clean them, they'll test them, they'll make sure they're working properly, and they are giving you a year's manufacturer guarantee on it as well,
Yeah,
which is something they don't have to do. Like
and
they
at no
they don't
extra cost too. It's not like GameStop where you're buying that extra warranty because of the
yeah.
refurbished ones.
Yeah, so actually this is a really positive thing I think from Sony for the first time in a while.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I've checked, and this is going to be our last news story of the day. Tango Gameworks is planning a more open world experience for Hi-Fi Rush 2. This is according to Krafton. The South Korean publisher, which recently acquired the Japanese studio and the IP from Microsoft, discussed its plans for the series in an interview with Game Industry Biz. Crafton, head of corporate development, Maria Park, said Tango was working on a 6-month-old build of Hi-Fi Rush 2 when the companies first met, although the sequel was currently on hold until Microsoft has transferred all of its related assets to its new owner. They want to make sure it surpasses the expectations of existing fans, she said of the sequel. For instance, some of the feedback about Hi-Fi Rush was that some people felt it was just going through factories, so now they want to give it a more open world type of experience. I don't think it's going to be completely open world, but a more dynamic environment you play in. Also, having more advanced technology applied to the rhythm action so it feels more synchronized. Park also said the original Hi Fi Rush could receive more DLC and be released for additional platforms such as the Nintendo Switch. That's what the team really wants, and I think that they want to work on Hi Fi Rush DLC too, because they are dedicated to ensuring that Hi Fi Rush 2 upholds high standards of quality. They don't want to rush the sequel, but take the necessary time to refine the game and come up with a different experience. On Microsoft's decision to sell Hi Fi Rush along with Tango, Park said it was very unusual for them to sell the IP even in case of a studio shutdown. Microsoft has retained the rights to the other IP from Tango, including Ghostwire Tokyo and Evil Within. You can check out VGC for the rest of that story there. Yeah, I mean, this kind of what I was expecting for Hi-Fi Rush 2 is like a more a slightly different change on some of its environments so that again it's not all factories and kind of
Yeah.
industrial stuff, so I could see them doing that kind of things there as well too. And I think the open world thing I think is just more of like maybe open zone, not so
Yeah,
much
I
open
think so.
world.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see. And again, like it is unusual for the IP to be sold alongside with a studio, so it's good to see that
It
Hi-Fi
is,
Rush 2 is gonna go.
especially for an IP that was reasonably successful given the scale of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
they could have quite easily taken this IP and given it to another team in the future, or they could have even started up a brand new team in a different location. Because I know that there are some there is some belief now that the main reason Tango got shut down might have just been because they were in Japan and it was hard logistically and things like that. Um, but I'm excited to see whatever this sequel is. What I will say is, although it's unusual for an IP to normally be sold alongside the actual studio branding as well, Microsoft are quite good with letting go of IPs that they don't intend to use. So, we saw that they did give the Alan Wake IP back to Remedy. They didn't have to do that. Microsoft owned that IP. Um, they've done it with other studios in the past where
I'm surprised they don't do
if
some type of profit sharing. We're like, hey, yeah, we'll give you the IP, but we get 5% of profits for the rest of its.
yeah,
You know.
and I think another one was um oh come on, Insomniac, Sunset Overdrive.
Hmm.
Like they still own the rights to the first game,
I
but they
think
did
they
actually give
didn't
the
they just
IP back.
tease? Didn't they just tease something with Sunset Overdrive?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, because that's a weird one because it's like they've given that IP back, but they did retain the rights for the first game. So in other words, they've done it so that the first game can only ever be on Xbox, which is a weird one.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We'll see. I do think, yes, it's rare generally speaking within gaming, but if you look at Microsoft's history, they do have a history of doing this. They are more than willing to let IPs go when they deem them things they're not going to use or that would be better used elsewhere. And
Yeah.
I think that's why they maintain quite a good relationship with so many different places because they are open to that, which
Yeah.
other companies might not be. So yeah, that's I think that's good positive news. I like the idea of what this sequel to Hi-Fi Rush is going to be, and I'm just wondering when we're going to see it. Really, at this point, I know that the game, obviously, the development, as they say, would have been on hold and is probably still on hold at the moment.
Yeah.
So
I
that
don't think
will
we see
delay things.
3 years.
3 years, interesting, interesting. You might be right because especially if they're going for a slightly bigger scope of game, it's going to take slightly longer for them to do it for sure. But is that our final bit of news? Because I feel like we
Yeah.
have things to
Uh,
talk about that we've been playing.
that is
Um,
pretty much it.
because I've only got one thing that I can talk about, I'll go first.
Sure.
And if you've been keeping an eye on my social media, you will know that I reviewed Metaphor Refantasio for our friends at the Outer Haven. I gave it a good score over there, so please go and read my review, which I will link below. Um, and we are delaying the release of this episode because we're recording it on a Thursday, but I'm going to release the episode on the day that Metaphor comes out so that I can talk a bit more openly about what is in the game and
And
those
I've
kind of
played
things.
the first 8 hours through the demo, so like
Nice.
I'm just at the point where like it's just after you get that the the part of the story where basically something is in the sky and it kind of
Yes.
conveys the plot of what's going on, and I'm just
Yes.
after that. That's where the demo ends.
Yeah. Okay, so there are going to be some light spoilers here. The only story spoiler I'm going to give is something that happens literally at the very beginning of the game and is even talked about in the write up of the game on any storefront. So it's not really a spoiler, like the information is out there. But I will be talking about different classes and that kind of thing. So if you want no spoilers at all, please, I fast forward the episode by about 5 minutes and you'll
And
be fine.
I think honestly, the people that are super excited for this game have already played the demo. I think
Yeah,
that is just kind
that's
of a
true.
reality as well too. So
That's true. So anyway, so Metaphor is obviously from the original team of the Persona 3, 4, and 5 game. and they decided that they wanted to make a more fantasy-based version of what they normally do. As you know, if you've been following me a while, I have always struggled to connect with Persona, and I don't know why. But with Metaphor, I was in on this game within like 10 minutes. Because it opens up with an anime scene of the king of this new land being killed. Basically,
Murder.
the king is assassinated, and from there your story sort of begins. You play as a nameless protagonist, but of course, this being a RPG, you have a party that you will find over time. But this is where things get interesting, right?
Did you know that
Because
he has a name though?
he has a name.
Yes, all the protagonists, they have a name. They have a canonical name.
Oh,
His
do they?
name is, yep, his name, and the one that I chose for it because I wanted to keep it canonical. His name is Will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
So, anyways, continue.
Interesting for sure. So yeah, there is a name, but you will pick the name of your
Yeah.
character. Um, and yeah, what I want to say is gameplay wise, you'll play this, and if you've played a Persona before, you'll be very familiar with it. It's turn based, it's, you have archetypes in this game which are like the personas from Persona. However, you don't go around catching these or persuading them to help you, essentially. You unlock them through what I would describe as character development. They are big character development moments.
Yeah. Whether they're on your party or they're just significant NPCs, they will kind
Yes.
of trigger that. And you can swap those around to different people. And then
Yeah.
actually, there's a skill tree that kind of like splits off
Yeah.
so they can upgrade.
hmm And there's lots of these archetypes. There
Yeah.
are a lot, and several of them can be kind of upgraded, and they have different levels. Where think of it like
Yeah.
a
There's
job system. Think
40.
of it like, so if
There's
you've
over
played,
40.
yeah. So if you've played something like the most recent Like a Dragon games, the turn-based ones, or any other sort of turn-based game with a job system, think of it like that, where you pick your archetype, you level up that archetype, and as you level it up, you unlock different skills and abilities, which essentially are your magic-based abilities in this game, and they are very powerful attacks. As you get later into the game, something I particularly enjoyed, which I think adds a level of depth to combat that not all turn based games have, but many do, is you have synergy abilities. So if you have certain archetypes in your party, those can combine to do even more powerful attacks or to do different kinds of things. So it the game has this thing where you have to think about the archetypes you have, and you have to think about the way in which those archetypes combine as well, because you want as many different types of attacks and things that you can have. For example, I actually changed the archetype of my main protagonist to be a healer
Yeah.
because I needed someone to do healing abilities. But in terms of leveling up with this game, you have more control over the way that your own protagonist levels up than you do over the way that party members level up.
Yeah, because they just level up automatically where you can slot points. And I like
Yeah,
that with the archetypes. When you've used them a certain point, you can take some of their abilities and actually transfer them over to other archetypes so
yeah,
that
you
you
can.
can
Yeah,
create hybrids.
yes. So if there's a certain ability that you do like, and this is
Yeah.
part of the reason I'm using the healer class right now, because I want to get a really good healing ability, and then be like, okay, I'm not going to steal this one, and
Yeah.
yeah, because one thing I will say is I haven't finished the game yet, because this is a very long game, and
Yeah, it's about 80 hours main campaign, 100 to 115 for
yeah,
everything else.
and the way the review embargo worked is we were only allowed to talk about up to a certain point in the game anyway. So that's
Yeah.
why you see many reviews already out and stuff. And some people have finished the game in their reviews, but you'll see many that sort of say, I've played around 30 hours, and that's kind of what we could speak about.
Yeah, it kind of
Um
sucks that like a game that long, they're not putting it out earlier, especially since frigging the review outlet in Famitsu, they had it like a week and a half
they got
before
to
anyone
release their
else.
review early. Yeah, they got to release their review even
Yeah,
earlier than everybody else. Um, but what I will say is something I think that this game does better than what I've experienced of Persona is the characters and their relationships. There genuinely is not a character that I don't like in this game in some way. Like, even the villains of this game are characters that I really enjoy. And I think that is just down to incredible writing. I think the voice acting for the main cast is also really, really strong. I'm playing in English, so that's
that's what
that's
I'll be doing as well too.
um and I just really like that, the way these characters develop over time being part of gameplay as well, because like I said, they unlock their archetypes through character development. Like, these archetypes come from very big character moments, and they are a big part of the story being told to you. um so I really enjoy all of that. I do like as well that there is some real-time gameplay. So when you're exploring the world and
Yeah,
dungeons and stuff like that, you can do a basic melee attack to enemies. But you're able to scan them because you have a little fairy that follows you around, basically, a bit like Zelda, as you can imagine. Her name is Galaga, I believe, or Gallica,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, Gallica.
and she eventually gains the ability to basically do like a pulse, and she'll highlight enemies for you, and depending on the color of their outline, it will tell you whether they're too weak, the same level as you, or higher level than you. And if they're really weak, you can kill them in
Yeah, there'll be
real
like a pack
time.
of wolves, and then you can kill all 5 wolves, or you can trigger the actual battle, and it just goes
Yeah,
immediately into it, and the enemies will be stunned or whatever, and then
yeah,
vice versa if you get
yeah.
attacked.
And if you get hit by an enemy before you stun them in real time gameplay,
Yeah,
you will then be stunned,
yeah, yeah.
which
It's
means they.
similar to a few systems that have done this. I know the Trails Through Daybreak has the exact same system where you can basically just like slash at certain enemies and
Yeah.
it'll do a certain amount of damage, and then you just go
Yes.
straight into the fight.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I really like about this game, and this isn't something I normally like about video games, but there is a use of pre-rendered cutscenes here, which are like anime, but they only use them for the biggest story moments. So there was a moment Jeff was alluding to earlier, and that entire section there is basically just like watching an anime. But I found it so immersive, and like they're such high quality that it
Yeah.
was really good,
Well,
really really good. And
the one thing that I've noticed about this game as opposed to say like Persona 5 Royal and Persona
yes,
5 in general is that this one is more open reaching to a larger space that it exists in,
yeah,
whereas with the Persona games, the public isn't really aware of too much other than when a calling card is out and stuff like that, so it's
yeah,
more self-contained. But
yeah,
yeah, like I love what I've played of it so far. I think
mhm,
it's fantastic. Like I still think Persona 5 Royal has a bit more charm in some aspects of it, but there is still a lot of carryover, like in Persona 5 when
yeah,
people are like, um emotionally distressed and they're about to gain their power, they kind of like rip the mask off and stuff. And in this one here, they kind of like reach into their chest and rip out a
Ri-
heart, and then
yeah,
they
yeah,
do their
and
little speech
I
and stuff.
really like that stuff. There are things I don't like about the game though. And some of these things are minor and some of them might be major depending on you, and your mileage will vary on these things. But I think the opening hours are paced very badly. Um like I think the game is very slow to get going, and I know that this is an RPG thing. It happens in lots of RPGs, but I was still getting kind of tutorials
Well, the
around
prologue is
certain.
like 8 hours.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it took about 12 hours for the game to really open up to me, where you get to the point that you're then using the calendar, because there is time management
Yeah,
parts
it's
of
just
this
like
game.
Persona, where you're like, yeah, you can
Yeah,
do something in the morning, something in the afternoon, something in the night, and there's like a
yeah.
variety of different
But
things and
what's
stuff.
but
Yeah.
what I found interesting is eventually you'll get to the point where you're traveling around the world, and it's not an open world, you're traveling to different cities, and some of them are just like a nice old school art backdrop, and then you'll have menus to buy thing from a shop in that village or whatever. And then you do have like these main city areas as well where you can do more quests and that kind
And
of
you can
thing.
glide around on your sword.
Yeah, you can. You can, although it's much slower than walking or running, so you might as well never do it. Um um but yeah, what I would say is what I found really interesting in terms of the time management thing, and a part of it that I did like, was when you're traveling, depending on where you're going to, it will sometimes take you multiple days to get to another location. But then sometimes you can get somewhere and go back on the same day. So you kind of have to think about the order in which you want to do things as well, which I do like that. But I think the negative part of that is when you combine it with the slow pacing of a JRPG style game. The issue is they don't give you enough occasions where you can do things. So, like, I will have, let's say I've picked up a side quest in the game, right? Sometimes literally picking up the side quest takes up one of my actions for the entire day.
Yeah, it's no different than Persona 5 at
Yeah,
all. Like it's the
yeah,
same thing where it's like, do I want to hang out with, this person or this person and like build up this stuff? It's the exact same thing. So it's
yeah.
yeah.
Which is why I say your mileage may vary, because if you don't mind that from those games,
Yeah.
then you're not really going to have any issue.
Because those types of things helped unlock different endings, like in Royal. Like if
Yeah.
you spend certain time with like three individuals, that helps unlock like the new ending.
Nice. But yeah, so there is that. And then for me the bigger one, which in a way the bigger one, even though it didn't have a massive negative impact on my experience, which is why I still rated the game highly, but it was something where I was like, "Oh, this just isn't right." Like, and that is the game for an open zone game, because that's what it is. You're open zoned, is still really segmented more than it needs to be. And what I mean by that is, like, Jeff I think will know, when you're in that first main city that you get to, you will like run up a stairway and you'll have a little transitional screen, and you'll run to another stairway and then have another transitional screen, and it's like, to me that is very old and dated design. And on a
Yeah,
technical level, I cannot understand why they couldn't at least make these open zones more seamless, because
I think it's
it's
mainly
not
to
like they've
run
got.
on every piece of hardware. Like
Maybe.
yeah, like it's more of an optimized thing because like I've heard the game runs extremely good on Steam Deck as well too. So
Yes, yeah, it does. Um, so yeah, maybe it is that, but it to me that was the one thing where I was like, okay, the game in these occasions does feel dated in its design. Like it that makes it feel more like a PS2 game to me, because like I said, based on the level of content they have, like NPCs going around and that kind of thing, there is no technical reason really that they shouldn't be able to make these cities more seamless than they actually are. And don't get me wrong, these transitional screens are very fast, but when you're in the city for 5 minutes, you might spend nearly 30 seconds of that in these transitional screens.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Is like there's too many of these transitional screens is what I think is the problem for me. But again, your mileage may vary on that being an issue, but those are the two main reasons that I couldn't give the game top marks based on what I had played at the time. Um, and what I want to say as well is the enemy variety is really, really good.
Yeah.
You will see the same enemies when you're kind of going into side quests and side dungeons and stuff like that.
Oh,
But
trust me, as someone who's played Persona, the amount of times that I've seen like Jack Frost and a bunch of other enemies across Shin Megami Tensei and all the other ones, I'm fine for repetition. That's been that series' MO for
yeah,
the
but
longest
what
time.
I will say is across the main quest, like I, you know, once I got to like 20 hours in, and I was like, yeah, I do see some of the same enemies, but there's actually a new enemy or a new enemy type every sort of 20 minutes. Like I was,
Yeah.
and I was getting new challenges, and
They've always been good for bringing a lot of new stuff.
they've done good with that. I do like as well something that felt quite unique to me, is as frustrating as it was initially. I like that the way that dungeons work in this game is you will have little safe rooms that you can go into
Yeah.
to save your
Same
progress,
as
and
Persona, yeah.
then you obviously then can choose to leave the dungeon and
Or
kind of
talk
get
with your
your
team.
resources back, and then come in and progress from that again. What I will say is I enjoyed that aspect of it because you can make partial progress and then be like, okay, I'm done for now, I'm going to come back later.
Yeah.
But what I didn't like about it is some because there's no way to get certain resources back early on in the game without resting, it kind of made things take longer than it should have artificially, if that makes sense. um like I was using my magic for attacks, for example, but early on in the game you can't buy any items to refill your magic. You will just occasionally find them in the world. And what that meant is, as soon as my magic got too low, I would have to then go to the next safe area, save, and leave the dungeon,
Yeah, see,
which meant
they'll do probably a different version of Metaphor Refantasio, like Metaphor Refantasio Royal, because like in the original Persona 5, it was similar with like your bullets. Like once you ran out of bullets, you were done. But in Royale, they have it now where your bullets regenerate at the beginning of every battle.
interesting. Okay,
So like I wouldn't be a bit
interesting.
surprised if there is like a Royal version of
Yeah, maybe they'll
Metaphor
call it
Refantasio.
Metaphor Refantasio, the Final Fantasy.
Well, like no, like they'll probably call it royal. I mean, it's basically you're dealing with royalty in this
True,
game.
and that
Um,
and that brings me back to another element that I really loved of this game so far, based on what I've played, and that is this entire game is holding up a mirror to the real world. Like there's political aspects to it. It There are different tribes in this game, okay? So for people who haven't played the demo, there are different tribes and your character is an elder, which is one of the lesser tribes, which basically means you are treated like crap by everybody else.
yeah,
And to me, the
yeah.
way
Some
that they
stores won't even sell to you.
Yeah, and to me, the way that they handle it is actually really quite like you can tell that they're taking inspiration from the real world and they're kind of saying this is how dumb the real world is sometimes. Let's be better than this. And I really like that aspect of
Yeah, because the main character has a book that essentially is like this like story, and it tells of a world that has one tribe, and they're basically all treated in
which
respect. And
seems
there's more to
which
the book,
seems to be like
but
an idealistic version of our
yeah.
world,
Yeah,
essentially.
and the book is like the because when you played Persona 5, you would get hauled into this like nightmare hellscape where you're talking to like I think his
Yes.
name is Igor, and then he would basically convey different things about the the personas where you could combine them and all that kind of stuff and
Yeah.
things like that. And there is
And you have a character in this that
yeah
will help you to do that with the archetypes as
more.
well.
I think his name's
Yes.
more. Yeah.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And then you have a cat. You can pet the cat. I mean, there's
Yes.
that. So there's that as well too.
And
And
there's
he's there
actually
all
a
the time.
gameplay reason to pet the cat. That's the other thing, is there's
Yeah.
a reason to pet that
He's
cat.
got a water
So
dish. He's looked after.
yeah,
And then you can read about the archetypes as well because he's in like a library, and then you can kind of go to like different spots of the
yeah.
library and
As someone
read
who's
about him.
played a bit of the game because of the demo, Jeff, what I want to know is, do you have any questions for me that you'd like me to ask?
No,
That
I'm good
answer?
exploring pretty much everything as I get it when I
Nice.
eventually do play it. Um,
Yeah, and you, of course, will be doing our review because there was a discussion about me possibly doing our review, but I know that Jeff had been waiting a long time for this game, so it just made more sense for him to do it, especially as I was coming from the perspective of someone that has never clicked with Persona, whereas Jeff has played the Persona games.
well, I've only played 5 Royal and
Yeah,
5. I played about half of 5, and then I played through Royal.
nice,
I haven't played any other ones other than
nice.
Strikers, and then yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. What I would say is that if you're someone like me who hasn't ever really clicked with Persona and you're more of a fantasy person, try that. Like, if you can pick up this game at a reasonable price,
Just try the
or
demo.
if you,
You get about
yeah,
8 to 10 hours if you don't feel like you're hitting on that, because like it gives you ability of doing some of the calendar stuff at the end of the demo.
yes,
Like it blocks off
yeah.
some story progress and stuff. But
What I will say is that the game does open up significantly after that demo period.
yeah,
So, and I'm not talking about in space necessarily. It's not like it becomes an open world game, but there are lots of things you can do that don't get revealed to you until later on after that demo period. So, I know that some people have been slightly lower on the demo, and what I would say is if you like Persona, you will like this game. Like,
yeah,
there's no way that you will not like this game because it is Persona and it does some things better than Persona does. And you know, people who've played a lot more Persona than me will tell you that as well. Like, Blessing from Kind of Funny, he will tell you, as someone who's played the last sort of 3 or 4 Persona games as they've been re-released and stuff, everyone I know who has a lot of experience with Persona have sort of said, yeah, Metaphor is a really good game that is built on what Persona does well, but it does some things very differently. You know, one of the things I like about the battle system, and I don't know, I can't remember if this is in Persona. You'll have to remind me, Jeff. But the front row and back row aspect of it as well.
yeah. So like when you're in battle and an enemy is going to attack the front row, you can move everybody back and then they miss, and then you can move everybody forward and they hit. And then
Yeah,
some attacks will kind of work from the back row, some will work front row. It's
yeah.
pretty typical stuff, based on
Yeah,
kind of how
because
you're
obviously
moving everything around.
lots of turn-based games do that, but you know, it's to me it was interesting because I've never seen I've never seen it done in this way where it's like sometimes you'll want to be in the back row to actually make your attack stronger, even when your attack would traditionally be weaker from the back row, you know? So it does some really interesting stuff. I think that if I was to highlight one thing of being the strongest element of this game, I actually do think it's the characters and the story being told. I think that is the strongest element by far. And then after that, it's probably the core kind of turn-based gameplay. You know, it's hard to get turn-based gameplay wrong at this point, and Metaphor is probably, at least based on what I've played so far, it's heading towards being my favorite turn-based game that I've played. So there we go. I can't give it much more praise than that, but please go and read my full review on the Outer Haven for more details of why I think what I think and some of the things I experienced. And I'm sure Jeff will have a review of that as soon as he can once he's spent the next month playing it or something.
Yeah, like no, because like with Thanksgiving and all that kind of stuff, like I'm gonna have the following Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, so I'm just gonna play as much of that and stuff,
Yeah.
and as much as I can on throughout the week and stuff, because I'll be picking up the game tomorrow in whatever capacity, whether that's the last minute code, or whether or not it is money,
Yes.
uh, leaving my bank account. But yeah, no, like so some of the other games that we've been playing as here, Jordan, I'm going to give you the option of what I talk about next, whether that is Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Silent Hill 2, or Starfield Shattered Space. What do you want to hear?
Um, because I haven't played it yet, tell me about Zelda.
So, I'm definitely not hot on Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I think it's fine. I think it's one of the first Zelda games that Miyamoto has had no involvement with, and you can feel it. It just kind of, I don't know, it feels soulless in a lot of ways. Like it's got little elements of charm, but it doesn't quite have the lovable aspects of that charm. I don't like any of the characters. I don't like any of the I don't like anything of anything to do with the characters. Like there's no memorable moments about them. There are little endearing moments, but you will forget about them the moment you move away from them. Um, it basically, so Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is the second game across the entire series where you play as Zelda. The first one,
Yeah.
obviously, being the CDI monstrosity that was it.
Yeah.
You've also been able to play as Zelda through the Hyrule Warriors games, both the Age of Calamity and Hyrule Warriors. But this is the first Nintendo made Zelda game where you play as Zelda. Um, Link has been cast into another dimensional rift, and you play as Zelda, and you get this rod called the Tri Rod, given to you by this little guy named Tri, who will not shut up. And you basically can absorb the echoes of things around you, from enemies to tools to objects. And but the problem is, you'll probably use about 5 of the 200 or 300 or however much they are. And the one thing that I find that is so frustrating, um, and I'll show you, that is so annoying. Um, so let's say, for example, all right. So let's say, for example, I want to sort through my stuff.
Okay. Oh wow, you have to literally go through every single thing to get to what. Oh wow.
I don't even have all of them, Jordan. That could go on 3 times longer for all I know. So it's so weird that they don't have just lanes of like objects, tools, enemies, or whatever the case is.
Or even, do they have like a quick pick? Is
Well,
there any
they
quick
kind of do, like, so basically, like, if you want,
Mhm.
you could basically press start here and
Okay.
then go to um, the list
Uh,
here
okay.
and then go through them and stuff and find it. And like it will allow you to it'll pull your favorites in terms of things you've used a lot, but not all the time.
That's a
And like,
shame because that would frustrate me. I think having to go through a list of potentially hundreds of items to
yeah,
find the one that I want.
like the newest stuff, you can just press the other direction and then it swaps to the end of it. So there is that end of it. But I mean, like, for example, one of the first things you ever get is the bed.
Okay, yeah.
I use the bed for fucking everything. I've seen people solve these puzzles with all these intricate things, and I'm like, no, bed solved, and I'm like, done. Like the bed is so OP. Like you can put a bunch of enemies against a boss in the corner, and then run to the other corner, slap a bed down, sleep, and then gain bad health. You just be like, hey, you guys fight. I'm gonna take some Z's, and I'll catch up with you.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
so it's got little fun moments like that, but the story, the characters, even the design of some of the worlds, like the dungeons are incredibly tiny. There's also these mini dungeons which were like, you need to find 3 or 4 of my buddies and then I can gain more power. Those you can beat in like 2 minutes.
Okay.
The dungeons take like 10 to 15 minutes tops.
Wow, okay.
They're generally like about 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 rooms, maybe. They're pretty simple. The bosses are mind numbingly easy. Like there's one boss where basically I just summoned about 6 like bokoblins or whatever with the little clubs and I just sent them after there and in like 15 seconds he was dead.
Wow.
Like it's weird. Like you also get this like power and stuff where you kind of like become like an echo of Link, where so you can wield the sword and the bow and bombs and
Okay.
stuff. And then
Okay.
that I didn't know I could upgrade it till I had the minor portions of it. For a while, I've upgraded it now, so now like the energy lasts longer, the sword
Mhm.
is stronger, so I can probably kill some bosses now in like probably 15 seconds.
Wow, that's. Do you get the impression then that this is kind of designed as, baby's first Zelda game?
I definitely think it is designed around a much younger audience than the normal Zelda games. And honestly, like I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this is like we created this game for young girls because you're playing as Zelda. It has universal appeal. Everyone can play it. I mean, Zelda, you can do whatever you want with it, but it definitely feels it is meant to skew to a much younger audience. Because even like the
Interesting.
level design is super basic. And again, like I use the bed, like I don't know if I can steer here, whatever like that. But like, let's see here. I don't know if it's gonna go. I can't really
That
get
way
it.
a bit. There you go. There you go. We can see it now.
But so like yeah, if I go to the bed here. Oh, just 1 second. I just gotta take a call here.
Cool. No problem. No problem. Well, while Jeff does that, I will say that I've been playing something else that I can't talk about too much yet, but it's called Europa, and it actually comes out at the time you'll be seeing this episode. Um, and it's kind of like a Zelda game in some ways that is open areas and you're doing puzzle solving and platforming and gliding around on different occasions. It's a really interesting game. I will have a review for it, but I haven't played enough of it yet to really speak about it. But yeah, if I was to sort of sum up what I have played, it feels somewhere between a Zelda game and Journey, the famous Journey video game. So it's fun, and it's that is another one that's coming to Nintendo. I believe it's exclusive to Nintendo and PC. Um, but it's a little indie game that is made by sort of a small team of people. There was one guy on it originally, and then he's combined to make a bigger team. Um, and it's fun so far, but like I said, I haven't
All right,
played
I'm back.
enough
You
of it
never heard
yet.
any of that, right?
No, we didn't hear
All right,
any of you.
perfect.
You
Okay,
were silent. I'm just
perfect.
talking about Europa that I have played a tiny bit of, and will have a review for on the Outer Haven, hopefully at the time that you're seeing this episode, because the game actually does come out tomorrow at the time of recording. So hopefully I'll be doing that. The game is only about 3 to 4 hours long, So, I'll be finishing it after we record here, and then I'll be writing up my review. There is something else I've been playing that I can't tell you about yet, but is something that both me and Jeff are very excited about, I think. So that's all I'll sort of say about that for now. And then next week, when we record next week's episode, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about what that is and what I experienced with it. Um, but Jeff, back to you, because I know you've been playing a few other things. So what else would you like to talk about here? I've probably got about 5 to 10 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I'll kind of briefly talk about one, and then I'll go more in depth on the other. I've been playing the DLC for Starfield. So Shattered Space. It's purple, it's pink, it's blue, it's pretty. But it's still Starfield.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking in this one. Holy hell! And then like there's because you always felt like a courier in these games where you're going one place to the other, and this
Yeah.
person's like, "Oh, can you help me?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? I'm here." My courier's dead. I'm like, "Fuck you." I'm like, that's the whole quest. Is just like, yeah, I need you to deliver these 3 packages, and I'm like, really?
That's
Um,
funny.
like the gameplay is still fine. The shooting and stuff, the enemies that you're fighting are these like ghostly blue spirit things and stuff like
So
that because
basically,
they're
what you're saying
caught in the
is if
realm.
you liked Starfield before, you probably are going to like
Yeah,
this.
and if you don't, it's not going to change anything. Like I'm
Yeah.
still going to go through the whole thing, and I'm probably going to put out a mini review for it. But so far, it's like it's a nice little planet. I like it all. It all takes place in one little section and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
you kind of you kind of join the serpent um
Yeah.
thing,
The
whatever.
serpent worshipping group.
Yeah, you basically join them and stuff, and then like you kind of work through that kind of stuff, and we'll
Nice.
go for there. But
So what
um,
else have you been playing?
yeah, so I've been playing Silent Hill 2. I wasn't originally going to get this unless it got extremely glowing reviews because I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend $90. But I
And
did.
then it got very good reviews.
It got very good reviews. So it worked. They got me. Yeah, so Silent Hill 2 is made by Bloober Team. This is a team that has been very, very, very inconsistent in regards to what they've been working on. They've also been a team that's not really good, been dealing with heavy issues. I mean, look at the ending of the Medium.
Yes.
Just Google like Google the Medium ending controversy and just read that line that pops up on Google, and you're gonna be like, holy shit, this team should not be working on things with deep issues. But no, like gameplay wise, it's good. Again, it's from a the over the shoulder third person view. So it definitely feels different. It looks really good. I think Unreal Engine 5 is good. I think there's some areas that I know people have been like showing these like phantom little mice running around and then zipping around and fading away and stuff. I'm like, dude, it's Silent Hill. It's meant to fuck with your mind. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. But so far, I've only fought the little enemies that are like kind of wrapped up and they're wiggling
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff. So I haven't got to anything substantial. I haven't even found a gun yet. I just finished the Blackbird
How's
puzzle.
the fog?
I mean, if you're playing on PC, you can patch that fog out and make it sunshines and rainbows. But the fog, I'm playing on PlayStation. I'm playing on performance. No, I'm playing on quality mode.
Okay.
Because everyone is saying that quality mode just looks better, and like the type of game that it is, it works well at 30 FPS.
Yeah.
If it dips below or anything, I'll swap it to performance and see how that goes. But visually, it looks really, really good. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the one of the character designs. Um, it's the girl that you meet in the graveyard. Her
Okay.
face just looks a little weird. It's
Just
almost like
isn't quite right.
I don't know. It kind of just looks like her head's like a little bit too big for her body. Like it's weird. I don't know what it is. But I mean, James looks as dumb as ever. Like so, I mean, he still looks like a guy that
Yeah.
would believe his wife is communicating to him beyond the dead. I mean, I just watched Shang-Chi the other day, and that's basically the whole storyline to that movie.
Yeah.
Um, but no, like Silent Hill 2, like it looks good. I mean, I think they added a bunch of new buildings that you can kind of go in. I don't remember
Mhm.
being be able to go into so many of the buildings before,
Yeah, they've
but I
definitely
haven't played that game in like forever.
so I haven't played it, but I do know that they've definitely added more locations that you can explore, and like even right near the start of the game, there's a side road that was completely blocked off before, and now you can go down this side road, and
Yeah.
there's things down there to explore. So I think they've done a good job at expanding it while maintaining the same atmosphere and feel, because they
Yeah,
have a lot of the main places still.
they definitely do a good job. I like being able to smash all the glass on the storefronts and stuff, and sometimes there'll be, like, little, like, pill containers and all that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I usually consider it some type of like health drink, whatever. And I just basically like my jokes while I'm playing is that every time I get hit and I get hurt, I'm like they're making me an alcoholic because I'm like I just need a little bit of the sauce to kind of go through. And sorry, my roommate's laughing, making me laugh. Yeah, I need my go juice. Yeah, like it's solid so far. I'm only like 2 hours in probably.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, like, because I've been trying to because like
Oh,
I didn't buy Zelda. It's my roommate's copy that she's back visiting and stuff. So like I have 2 days to beat it
yes.
before she takes it.
Yes.
But yeah, so like I'm balancing between Zelda and Silent Hill
Nice.
2, and
Well, we
Silent Hill
look
2 is
forward to you reporting
solid.
back more on it, because it sounds like it's good so far. And like I said, I'm not going to be playing it for a little while because I'm going to wait for the PC version to be fixed. And the only reason for that is I already have the money in my Steam account to buy the game, so I don't want to then waste money buying it on PlayStation. It's just, if I hadn't already had the money in my Steam account, then I would have just bought it on PlayStation instead. But it seems silly to do when it's probably something they'll fix in like 3 to 4 weeks, and there's enough other things to play that are either out already or coming out. So,
Yeah.
so
But no, like this
yeah,
is getting the same scores as like the Resident Evil 4 remake and stuff. So I mean, like
yeah.
survival horror's kind of in a good place right now.
And what
You
this
know,
really means is Konami is back, Jeff. Konami is
yeah,
actually
and they got
back.
that Metal Gear Solid remake that's coming out where like if you play in the old classic view, the game's harder. It actually changes the difficulty, and then if you
Yeah.
play in the other mode, which is the new modern one, it's the easier difficulty.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting, because if they can hit anywhere near the level of quality they have with the Silent Hill 2 remake
Yeah.
on the Metal Gear one.
Oh, and hell, David Hayter apparently is reportedly back playing Snake. Like he's
Yeah.
recording new dialogue for
I mean,
Metal Gear
he
Solid
he
4,
yeah, he
probably.
tweeted out something the other day, right, of like, "Oh, I'm in the booth recording for a character that I haven't
Yeah.
played in
And I like
years."
IGN, they're like, David Hayter's back playing Snake, and they show a picture of Metal Gear Solid 5, and people are like,
Yeah, he wasn't that one.
yeah, yeah. So that was
Oh,
kind of
that's
funny.
funny. That is funny. But yeah, I think that will do it for this episode. We will be back next week. I'm actually going away for a few days now, but we'll be recording on Wednesday next week, which is our usual recording day. So all being well, we should be recording on Wednesday. If you have any questions about the games that we have been playing, which we've already spoken about, please let us know and we will answer those next time, because I would have played more Metaphor by then, and Jeff might have played more Silent Hill by then. um
Oh yeah,
will so I want to have a bit more of a community thing here. If you've played any of these games, or if you play any of them by the time we do our next episode, leave some comments below, and we might read them out on the show of what your experience is with the game. And for now, I think that's it. We've got obviously different reviews and things coming to the website. There's always news coming to the website. I haven't been much help to Jeff recently with that stuff, but that's because I've been very, very, very busy playing video games and playing things that I can't speak about yet, which I'm looking forward very much to speaking about. But for now, I will see you next week, and it's a goodbye from me.